Na mtazamaji, asante sana kwa kuendelea kutizama matangazo yetu ya moja kwa moja ya Kenya's Choice 2022, ambapo ni hapa tunapokupa matangazo kadri yanavyotiririka. Na kwenye studio siko peke yangu kama ulivyoona, naye mwenzangu Trevor Umbija pamoja na wageni wetu. Trevor, kabla tuende kwenye mapumziko, kuna suala ambalo Binansi alikuwa amelizungumzia, suala la vijana kujitokeza katika kupiga kura. Tunaona katika uchaguzi huu, manake kadri tunavyoendelea kusubiri matokeo, lazima pia tutathmini, tuangalie ni mambo gani ambayo hatukuyafanya vizuri huko nyuma ambayo yatatusaidia baadaye katika kurekebisha tunakokwenda. Katika mikutano ya kisiasa, wanasiasa walikuwa na idadi kubwa sana ya vijana ambao walikuwa pale wakiwashabikia. Na tunajua wengi wa wale vijana ni ambao pengine walikuwa hawana kazi za kudumu na wanatumiwa sana na wanasiasa. Kwa nini ilipofika wakati wa kupiga kura, vijana wale hatukuwaona mbele? Wengi waliokuwa wanajitokeza ni watu wa marika ambayo yanaeleweka, na hata wazee. Maanake tukiangalia wazee walijitokeza kwa wingi. Wale vijana ambao walikuwa tunaona wamevalishwa t-shirt za uchaguzi, za kampeni, walikuwa wako mbele, lakini wakati wa kupiga kura hawako kwenye foleni. Pengine wanasiasa wanakosea wapi wakati wa kuhamasisha vijana kujitokeza katika kupiga kura?
Swali nzuri hilo. In fact, Dr. Omole, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, because this was also mentioned by Jakaya Kikwete, former Tanzanian president, who was here at the East African Community Election Observation Mission. He said that the mission observed with concern that young people did not participate effectively, primarily as the voter and also those contesting for the elected seats. And Mwana is wondering what could have caused this.
Yes, I think this election, actually, the statistics says that around only 39% of the youth were registered voters, and that's a very, very low voter turnout for the youth. And you ask yourself that, why are the youth not participating in the elections? Because your vote is your choice. And if the youth, we are very aware that a lot of youths are unemployed. Either they finished high school, they finished university, and they don't have jobs. And this has been worsened by the last 3 years, whereby we've been having the COVID. So we've been having a lot of, hard economic times. And for some reason, we see that the youth are at the forefront of these political parties, as Mwana says, that they're putting on the t-shirts and they're shouting and everything. And even when I saw the convoy of Honorable Raila Odinga go through Kibra, so somebody commented that, all these youths shouting, have they voted or are they going to actually vote? But then you ask the question, why are the youth not interested? Why don't they think that their vote cannot influence the destiny of this country? Because if I'm a youth and I vote and I don't have a job, then it gives me the hope. But then again, this comes down to civic education. How did we do our civic education? Did our civic education target the youth and mobilize them and tell them that you have to vote, because if you vote, you're able to actually determine the destiny of this country? So it's not only that the youth, which we are not seeing that they voted, and sometimes maybe the youth seeing themselves that they just used to cause violence. And even now, we're still waiting for the outcome of the election. It can go either way. The people you're going to see at the forefront, maybe, shouting and everything, are going to be the youth. But that shows that there's a gap in the civic education. And this is also reflected in the amount of the spoiled votes. If in some places we're getting 1,000 or over of, the spoiled votes. So I think in the next election, the focus should be on the youth. We need to find out that exactly why are the youth not voting? Can we start all this voter education, sensitization in schools? Can we do them at the communities? And how can we put the youth at the forefront of influencing our politics? And one person says that in certain regions of this country, some places they saw actually new politicians are very youthful. You remember Toto of Rift Valley, who was 25, and she went and vied for the women rep, and she's going to be one of the youngest legislators in the coming parliament. But one thing she said, she didn't have money, but she went talking to people that, I want you to vote me. I don't have the money, but if you vote me in, I'm going to do for you A, B, and C. But most of the time you're seated back, people are saying that if you want an MCA seat, you need 4 million. If you want an MP seat, you need 10 million. So the youth are seated there and saying, where am I going to get 4 million? Where am I going to get 10 million. So we need to have good stories, such stories of Lilian Toto, whereby you can be a young person, you can go out there and sell your policies to the people.
Yeah, and Lynette was a good example in Bomet. Lynette, the one is Lynette Toto, quote unquote. But Deuri, what are your thoughts on this? Why are the young people not participating? And yet, like Mwana says, we did see them in the rallies. They were there, massive numbers, but this is the lowest voter turnout compared to the last 2 previous election cycles.
Wacha nijaribu kuzungumza kwa lugha ya Kiswahili.
No.
All the best.
Unaweza kuchanganya pia.
You're not very encouraging. I think kwa vijana kuna shida. Shida kubwa ni kuwa kuna vijana wengi ambao hawana kazi. Wamesoma, hawajapata kazi, ama kama wamepata kazi ambayo sio ile ambayo wamefaulu kuifanya. Kwa hivyo kwa Kiingereza tunaita the underemployed. And ukiangalia takwimu zaonyesha kuwa vijana ni wengi sana, as in there's a youth bulge. Kwa hivyo ukiangalia hiyo hali ya umesoma, hauna kazi, kukiwa na mkutano na kuna ile ambayo inaitwa political mobilization. Ukikuja kwa hiyo mkutano ndakupatia 500, ukikuja kwa hiyo mkutano ndakupatia 1000 ama ndakupatia 200. Utapata kuwa hao vijana watakuwa sasa employed kama crowd attendants. Kukiwa na mkutano kule anakimbia kule, kukiwa na mkutano wapi anakimbia, kwa sababu anapata mapato pale. Lakini sasa wakati wa kuja kupiga kura hana ile imani ama hana ule mvutio wa kukuja kupiga kura, kwa sababu kitu ambacho kilikuwa kinamvutia aje kwenye mikutano ilikuwa zile hela ambayo anapatiwa kule. Lakini ikifika sasa kwa yeye kuamka kwa hiari yake sasa mwenyewe kwenda kupiga kura, hana imani na wale politicians ambao wamesimama, na haoni kuwa hata akipiga kura kuna mfaidi kwa njia yoyote ile. So pale ndio pengine kuna shida kidogo. Na kitu cha pili, pia vile tunavyosema, gharama ya wale ambao wanajaribu kuingia kwenye kisiasa na bado ni vijana, wanaangalia zile pesa ambazo zatumika. Na kwa njia moja, uchaguzi hapa Kenya umewekewa pesa nyingi, ama wanasiasa wanatumia pesa nyingi kama njia ya kufanya nini? Kuzuia competition. Kwa hivyo sasa ukitaka kuwa gavana unakuja utumia kama 100 million, 200 million. Ndio mtu ambaye anajua sasa nikitaka kumtoa lazima pia mimi niwe na a war chest. Na hiyo ndio maana pia wakati IBC wametengeneza sheria za election financing, unaona kuwa parliament haina motisha ya kupitisha hizo sheria, kwa sababu ni njia moja ya kufanya nini? Kuzuia competition by using excessive amounts of money kufanya campaign. So kuna an element of frustration, anger, and in certain places kuna wale ambao walikuwa uongozini na wamengatuliwa, na hiyo anger has been part of the reason ya hao kutolewa. Kuna frustrations, hakuna kazi. Of course tumekuwa na COVID miaka 2, so hata wale ambao walikuwa kazini, kuna wengine mishahara yao ilipunguzwa, bado haijarudishwa mahali penye ilikuwa. Kuna wengine walipoteza kazi. So there's a lot of frustration among the youth, which is affecting their ability to participate effectively in politics.
Yeah, but would implementing the Election Campaign Financing Act be better in any way?
Yes, yes, it is, because One, it is a marker of integrity in the internal political process. So that the first, of course, we have issues in this country with regards to our compliance with the law. But the first thing to do is to first have the framework.
Yeah.
And then we now begin to question, how are we implementing, or how effective are we implementing the law?
Yeah.
So there is a need there's an obvious need to have the rules on election financing. If you look at what has happened in this election, it tells you that the amount of resources that have been used are so much. And the danger is that then you open up the political environment to be more susceptible to alternative sources of income generation. So that you will find that people with history of drug trafficking, money laundering, can then easily influence who becomes the leaders in the country by either themselves vying for political office or supporting candidates who would then be more amenable to control, and that in itself is a security risk.
Yeah.
That we face as a country.
All right, Dr. Mola, how can this field be leveled for young people, for women, for everyone else? If you don't have the money, just a level playing field.
I think we are trying to have that level playing field, but it's still very challenging. Because as we still don't have laws whereby you're going to politics or you're spending or giving money, or even the Mwananchi themselves, they should ask themselves, where is this money coming from? Because most politicians are saying that when I want to go to politics, I'll go and take a loan of 20 million. Then I give it to people. And when you look at that money, it can be 20 million, but what each person is getting might be very small. It might be 1,000 shillings. It might be 2 kilos of sugar or something. But I think the local person, the Kenyan voter has to have a change in mindset that I don't need to be given sugar, I don't need to be given money, I don't need to be bribed for me to vote. I want someone who can deliver. But I think currently politicians, they promise a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they don't deliver. And no one really holds them, accountable. So I think at the moment we've been having the affirmative action, which is...
Dr. Molo, hold that thought in just a bit. Let's cross over to the St. Francis Karen Church, where we're expecting an address there from Raila Odinga. We have a bit of a sound challenge there, but you can see his entourage of the elects are already there, standing by, waiting for Raila Odinga. As soon as he comes in there, we'll cross over there to have the address, but for now it hasn't started yet. So you are finishing your thoughts, Dr. Molo, on this issue of voter bribery and civic education so that the people know what's
Yes, I think civic education is very important. And currently, IEBC is the one who's mandated to do the civic education. No one can just come out that I'm going to do this civic education. But we still need affirmative action, whether it's for gender, whether affirmative action, which focuses that, within each constituency, maybe we have to have certain kind of youths. And another group where people are not talking so much about are people who are differently able. Because if you look at this kind of election, we'll ask that, people who are differently able, how many of them are we having in parliament? So far, I'm not seeing that kind of statistics. Because I can imagine whether you are a youth...
Hold on 1 second. Now I believe we have sound from St. Francis. Let's listen in.
Assembly, and then we will have a brief from the chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, SG of ODM. We have with us here a number of leaders from the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance Coalition Party. I want to just introduce members of parliament, if there is a senator, members of parliament including the Senate and governors. Here is Mheshimiwa Oron. Oron represents Kisumu Central, he's the MP-elect. Kiminini. Kiminini is here. Bissau, very good. This is Cherangani, yes. But Simiyu, yes. I know the name Simiyu. And we have here Anthony Oluoch, of course, is a household name, the MP for Mathare, representing Mathare people. The hosts, someone...
John Barry there, just giving introductions of all the MP-elects that are there. This is also a list that we also gave you earlier on. As soon as there's anything that's going on in that region that is different from the introductions, we'll cross over there. Man, you will not miss a thing. Yeah. Dr. Molo, you're finishing your thoughts on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just talked about, having affirmative action in the place. Having civic education will be very important so that people realize that you need youthful, you need a diverse, politicians. You need young people, you need women, you need people with disability, giving an opportunity to everybody.
Yeah.
And this can be achieved through civic education. And recently we also saw that the CDF is being removed from the MPs because the Supreme Court declared that this is an illegal. So when you remove that amount of money, the CDF from the members of parliament, and is it going still to be attractive to go for member of a parliament or to go to become an MCA? And someone said that immediately you reduce the allowances of the members of parliament, you remove the CDF, then anyone, this position can even be a volunteer position. When there is not so much money to be made out of becoming a member of parliament, then you can even have some people just volunteering, they want those positions. But what's something which is also surprising is that at the lower level, people thought that the MCAs, members of county assembly, that this is just kind of like a simple job. But now you go to the counties and you find they have billboards, and you're asking yourself also, when you remove this CDF from the MPs, where are you going to take it to? But one of the most important things is that let's remove this allowance. Too much money put on this, being a politician is a way to be rich and everything. Can we look at it that it's a way of serving the people? Yeah. So that anybody, you can have even MCA level. Why can't we have MCA being even volunteers? So you are a professional and you can go and volunteer at the county level. Then we can start talking about let's reduce this bribery, because if I'm going to bribe people and I'm not going to get the 20 million back, then why should I bribe people?
Yeah. But the area was mentioning they're all being professional campaign attendees of the rallies. But how much of this is also to blame on the electorate? Because they are also the ones who demand the money from these leaders. Anytime they go, and they have different coined versions of doing it, that they demand some level of remuneration. And then don't show up during voting day because at that particular point, now campaigns are done, the member of parliament you're looking for is not even there.
I think it's more to do with conditioning.
Yeah.
That the voter has been conditioned to expect a handout from the politician, and it is that handout that then makes it extremely expensive to run for office, and not just run for office, but maintain yourself in office, because the electorate seems to think, and that has been the predominant reason why members of parliament want to have CDF, want to have several other funds where they are able to use to bring development. And our understanding as the electorate of what development is completely different from the Oxford or the dictionary definition of what development is. And so therefore, for a member of parliament, giving handouts is a critical part of development. And so you need to have all these funds so that you can then be able to have avenues to make an entire constituency happy. And the demands that are there, I mean, for every little family function, and if there's a death in the family, you expect the member of parliament, and there's a birth in the family, you expect a member of parliament. So there is an unreasonable expectation on the member of parliament to fund the lifestyle of his constituents, that then makes politics extremely expensive and unattractive. And the problem is that it does not have an easy prescription, because the member of parliament knows that if I don't contribute to the development of my people, then in 5 years' time, whether he will have actually achieved actual development, as it's properly so called, his people may just shun him.
Yeah. But this movement of removement of CDF having been declared unconstitutional and some of the allowances being slashed by SRC, will that then enable the people to sift through the chaff from the wind? Because you'll see then that only politicians who have delivered will then be re-elected. And even those who are going for those positions will go for those positions with specific agendas and not the perks that come with it.
The jury is still out on whether the incoming parliament would be comfortable leaving the matters as they stand right now.
So there's a chance
with their slashed remuneration and the CDF being declared unconstitutional. Yeah. So chances are that they might still try to find another avenue to reinstate those benefits. But of course, I am sure that the country and the civil society organizations would be watching those moves extremely keenly and would be able to challenge any attempt to claw back and reinvent and you know, reintroduce and this, because I mean,
because the stamp was done by the Supreme Court.
Yes,
so unless they call it something else.
Yes, yes, and really at a fundamental level, in terms of principle and in terms of the role of the Member of Parliament, there should be the three critical roles of legislation, representation, and oversight. And so therefore, it does not, it defies logic to be able to be having a fund and which you are supposed to actually have oversight over. So that is something I think that we'll be watching quite keenly to ensure that the incoming parliament does not try to reintroduce. But what I'm saying is that the pressure on the Member of Parliament to have an alternative fund where they can occasionally, you know, distribute their resources for purposes of keeping their electorate happy is a pressure that is going to be on the Members of Parliament. And I think that one of the things that we will achieve great strides in the country is that if they can be able then to defy that pressure and to, you know, re-engineer the minds of their electorate, that I only have three roles. And I want and I ask you to please examine me or my performance on the basis of how I perform on these three roles. Yeah.
But Dr. Molo, is that where the civic education you're talking about has to come in? Because at this particular point then, most of the electorate have always judged their members of parliament or the elected leaders through CDF. I mean, how many people have you given bursary? How many funerals have you contributed to? How many things have you done? How then will you change the mindset of the voter to realize that that CDF in itself, the expectation is now no longer there? And now you need to judge your elected leader based on their role that is in the Constitution, which most people are not even aware of to begin with.
I think it's still very challenging. I think recently there was this documentary about the burden of being a mheshimiwa. And when you watch that documentary, they'll say, you know, immediately just say that I want to vie for an MP. In the morning you wake up, you have people at your gate, they're waiting to come and take tea. And sometimes the voters even know that you're not going to make it, but they keep on calling him mheshimiwa. Just keep on going so that, you know, you keep on giving them money. And if you look at politicians who've not made it after going through that campaign, some say that they're left in huge debts because sometimes you have to borrow money. You don't even have that money. You can even go onto your M-Pesa and borrow money just to give out to these people. You have funerals and all this. So I think it's going to take a lot of mindset, you know, to change this process, because some people who are also going to this member of parliaments or these politicians, they're really out of desperation. They cannot afford good health care. They have their children who finished primary school and they cannot afford to take them to college. And as much as we criticize the CDF, when you go to the local level, you can actually meet people who are saying that, oh, I was not able to pay school fee for my children, but through the bursary, the CDF, I've been able to get support from them. So actually you get people. So we really have to really think keenly that if we remove the CDF, what will we have at the alternative? Because you need a budget at the county level. And also we had the CDF even before we had the devolved governance. And with the devolved governance, how can we manage all those kind of expectations of the people? So it's something we really have to think through. But I think today, even if you go to the people and tell them about you're going to legislate, pass bills, they say that, bills do not give me food.
Yeah.
They
want to eat now.
They want to eat now. So it's also out of our desperation, and we don't have a social welfare system. So it's a really challenging situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Mwana?
Naam, nilikuwa nimearifiwa kwamba tunarejea katika mtaa wa Karen, lakini bado tunazidi kumtafuta Seth Olale aweze kutueleza, manake kama ulivyosema pale, viongozi wa Azimio walikuwa wako pale, walikuwa wanataka kuzungumza kwa vyombo vya habari, lakini naarifiwa kwamba Seth muda usiokuwa mrefu atakuwa anatufahamisha ni yapi ambayo yanajiri. Kwa hivyo tunaweza kuendelea.
Hapo sawa sasa, lakini let's talk about something else in terms of our governance structure. Is that where we got it wrong? Should we rethink it? Because we can see how there's such high stakes in this particular election that everybody is waiting for the announcement. But should we rethink the whole structure so that it's a country where the person who loses the election most of the time has a substantive number of votes, so it's almost like half the country. Should we rethink the structure so that everybody feels don't make it such a high-stakes game anymore?
Politics anywhere across the world is usually high stakes.
Yeah.
Because, that is the exercise where all of us come together to donate certain powers to us, a small clique of people to determine our destiny for a particular fixed period of time. And so naturally, then it has high stakes, because we all understand the concept of democracy is that all of us have the power to make our own choices, but for purposes of having a society, then we donate that power to various institutions, one of them being the institution of the executive. And that is, you would find that in our constitution, in the preamble, when you talk about we the people giving that power. So by its very nature, then it will have extremely high stakes. And we see this, and I think also there's something in this country that we love politics. Every elective position in this country, be it for a professional organization, be it for a church leadership, the cattle dip committee, have such high stakes, or rather interest and passion, that people tend to equate that to the high stakes. But that said and done, there's also significant merit in the suggestion that we need to relook a system which seems to suggest that the winner takes it all.
Yeah.
And you know that during the period for the clamor for the Constitution, that was one of the significant considerations that informed the clamor for the amendment of the Constitution. And also, during the process of negotiating the Constitution, there was quite a bit of discussion in terms of how we achieve that dispersion of authority, and also the fact that our mobilization is more inclined along tribal lines. And so therefore, what you're essentially saying is that it is not a huge section of the country feeling locked out of the leadership, but it is in actual fact, it will be 2 or 3 tribes feeling locked out of the governance of the country. But I think that we are developing as a democracy. There are things we are seeing in this election that we did not see in the previous election. And so this culture of gradual...
Hold that thought for a bit. We'll come back to finish that issue. But mwana nasikia sasa uko tayari na Seth ama vipi?
Na bila shaka tunaungana sasa na Seth ambaye yuko Karen ambako kule